Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
The Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at BetOnline. Get in the mix at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
PodcastOne presents the Steve Austin Show Classics.
All right, we're off and rolling. I'm sitting there talking to Jumpin' Jim Ross, white meat babyface out of Norman, Oklahoma. Jim, what the hell's going on down there?
Well, it's just too damn hot to be outside, Steve, so I'm catching up on a little JR's barbecue work, so it's all good.
You know, I'm fixing to get in some questions here in a little bit. I got a lot of questions that people send in the questions, SteveAustinShow.com. I said you was going to be on the show. Here you are. I get a lot of people asking about the barbecue sauce. How can they get their hands on it? Let's jump right into business and talk about a little barbecue sauce.
The easy way to get it in the States is through www.shop.com. I got a page on their website that's got all kinds of packages, all the products. They carry everything that we make, www.shop.com. And then we got, you know, for a lot of our folks that live in the UK, they get it at americansoda.co.uk, or they can get it at beyondtheropes.co.uk.
Hey, man, you got any new flavors coming up? I mean, because I'm a big fan of the Chipotle ketchup. That's probably my favorite. Of course, you got the barbecue sauce and the main event mustard. You got your dry rub going now, but just in the vein of another liquid sauce, anything else in the works?
Yeah, we're working on a hot sauce that's really healthy and really clean, a lot of big flavor, and we're also working on a very clean barbecue sauce for diabetics, people with health issues. All of our products now are gluten-free. And people are going to say, how in the hell do you make a good-tasting, healthy barbecue sauce? Well, we haven't got there yet, but I got a bottle of it in my refrigerator right now. But it's getting closer.
Right.
So if we can make this sauce taste good, we're going to have a gluten-free, diabetic-friendly, heart-healthy barbecue sauce, and we're closer than people think.
All right, we're selling barbecue sauce right off Jump Street. Let's sell one more thing. Let's sell Paul Heyman's DVD. My name is Paul Heyman. Man, I tell you what, you and I were talking on the phone the other day, and you saw it before I did. And I rented the thing on television the other day. I didn't get a chance to see all the behind-the-scenes things of the matches, but I saw the 2-hour special. And I'm going to go out and buy the physical DVD set, but I know and love Paul to death. I've known him for a long time, and obviously you've worked with him for a long time as well. At the end of the DVD, I mean, he's a total babyface. He's putting in some of the damnedest promos, some of the best work I've ever seen done right now in professional wrestling / sports entertainment. What did you really enjoy about the DVD for Paul Heyman, Jim?
Well, I thought that the whole crew there, when they were assembling the sound bites from various people that worked with Paul, I thought they did a terrific job. The look of that DVD was really well done. And I didn't know exactly what to expect, but Paul was very honest about, where he's messed up and where he's done well. And if you're going to do a documentary and you got the balls to do one, you better be honest, or you're just putting out more fiction. But I thought he was very honest. He knows he was a pain in the fanny to deal with back when he was a young, brash kid. And, he got fired by Rick. I think Flair fired him when Flair was the head of the booking committee, which was an absolute train wreck. Nate was one of the best in the history of the world in the ring, but managing the booking committee is akin to him balancing his checkbook, and now we've all heard those stories. So right. I love the guy, but, head of a committee, not going to work. But he got pissed off at Paul and fired him. And I don't even know what Paul did. And Paul probably deserved it. Maybe brought it on himself, so I said, I'll take him. And they, what are you going to do with him? Well, I'm making him my broadcast partner. So that's what I did, and that began a real unique relationship because, boy, he could be challenging to work with. there's a time that you get started to go to work when they got production time, and then there's Heyman time back in his younger days.
Right.
And so he would frustrate the hell out of me because I came out of that Bill Watts camp where if you're going to have an 8 o'clock in the morning meeting, it's really best to be at the meeting site about 7:30.
Right.
And that's just old school stuff. Don't mean it's right or wrong. Just the way it was. So he was challenging, but I knew right away, at least I thought, that this kid's really special. He sees, he has good vision, he's got great instincts. And I looked at him as a heel manager, a heel commentator, Steve. He had that great intangible. His TV persona was easy to dislike.
100%.
Easy. He didn't have to go act. He didn't have to be somebody that he wasn't. He didn't have to be, create a character. He was just an embellished version of who he actually was, and who he actually was could piss you off just by going through the drive-thru.
He's always had that innate ability to get heat on himself. What was the difference in working with him back in the day in WCW and then fast forward all those years to when you guys got back together when Lawler left and you got teamed up in WWF?
Well, he was on a real learning curve type thing in that first run, that WCW run. He was still learning how to get in and out of a segment and the basic fundamentals of broadcasting, words to use. I'd work with him on descriptors, adjectives, in other words,
yep.
For a heel, and there was other adjectives for the same act you'd use for baby faces. There's an announcing science, and he got it. So that when he and I got back together, when Lawler left, we really kind of picked up where we left off, and he had all those experiences with ECW. He'd matured some, still had a little attitude, which is great, but we were better the second go-round,
right.
And, like WrestleMania 17, and then we were better then than we were even in those early days. And some of those days, I watched on the network because I hadn't watched any of those pay-per-views. I didn't watch them back. We did all right, both of us working together there. So, but he's a brilliant son of a bitch, no doubt about it. And it just shows you where the business is, Steve. That there's nobody has the manager role, or he calls it an advocate.
Right. Basically, it's a manager. He can call it whatever he wants. Yeah.
But the business has let that go to hell, and one of the reasons he's standing out is because he's so damn good.
Right.
And the other reason is he ain't got a lot of competition in the marketplace.
Right.
And that's going to. And I'm not knocking Paul. I mean,
right.
Paul's one of the best talkers ever
in the history of the business, out of anybody from top to bottom.
Yeah, and that's from me hearing it with my own ears for the last 40 years. So I'm not knocking Paul at all. Paul is a genius, but you got to admit that there ain't a whole hell of a lot of managers out there that are being used that are making a ripple in the water. Well,
with that being said, other than the new gal that they've got in with Rusev, how come managers have fallen off? Just because now with the fact that it's sports entertainment, they're a little bit more passe because the business has been exposed, and it's like, okay, we see through this, and now we really see through the managerial aspect of it. What's your take?
I think that it's people in the wrestling business who don't want to be known as wrestling promoters, and they look at managers as being too wrestling, as they say. It's too much of a pro. Managers in the business are a direct correlation to the old school of how pro wrestling was promoted, and so they have their own insecurities about how they're categorized in life. They mean the decision makers. It's the same damn reason they don't do time limits. Same reason you never see a draw. Same reason that punches are legal. People just got late. They wanted to start distancing themselves and watering down and taking away everything that they could that would identify back to pro wrestling. Even though they're still in a ring, they're still wearing tights, they're still getting headlocks. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely embarrassingly hideous, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to be known as a wrestling. We're not really in the wrestling business. What is that ring? What is that squared circle thing you get on ropes? What's that? And who are those guys in there? And them boots on, those tights? Who the hell are they?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of, it's eyeball rolling. To me, it's kind of like, oh, geez, you're killing me. But I think that the managers were just kind of clumped into that old school wrestling vernacular, and we just said, hell, we don't need that. We'll just move on. So, if Paul comes out on the other side, being really, really good at what he does, he's like those bucks you like to kill. You can kill a lot of deer on that ranch of yours, but you're looking for one, maybe two,
right?
That's really special. And he's really special. He came out on the other side and has the perfect gig, because Lesnar ain't going to come to every TV, nor does he need to. Lesnar doesn't need to be full-time to be the champion, in my opinion. But because you got Heyman.
Right.
And you got video crews and camera crews that can go to Lesnar and get some sound bites. And the last ones he did that I saw in the build-up for the Cena match at SummerSlam, Brock did a hell of a good job.
Yeah, that was a great build-up. But let's shift gears for a second, because I sent out a tweet on my Twitter account, Steve Austin BSR, and Jim Ross's Twitter account is @JR'sBarbecue. Jim Ross's podcast, The Ross Report, drops Tuesday night, once a week, every Tuesday night. Make sure you tune into that. But, Jim, you've been having a lot of time to reflect, and you've been on the WWE Network as of late, watching some of your old work. And I can't remember if I've asked you this before on some earlier shows, but now that you've seen some of your work back, what to you is the period when you thought you were at your best?
Oh, I started getting half-assed decent in the UWF.
Yep.
Michael Hayes was a very underrated color guy, and he was another guy that would piss you off before the red light even came on. Just showing up late, or smelling some booze on his breath, or him just being in a bad attitude, or he was a creative genius, and he had that Heyman trait. He was easy to dislike.
Right.
Then when we sold the company to Crockett, I thought some of my better work was in those NWA days, and then the work was good at times in WCW, because we were kicking out some pretty good wrestling. But then when the management at WCW wanted to be WWE light, it kind of like wasn't my style. People ask me about that all the time. I thought the Attitude Era work was pretty decent.
Yep.
But there was some of my work over my 40 years that I have never even listened to, because people knock Michael Cole, which is wrong. He's a hard-working, good family man, and he's a good, loyal son of a gun, and he ain't me because I'm not him. We're different. My point is that he's probably perfect for what WWE's doing today.
Yeah.
I would not be. I would not be. He actually, I think, probably is a better announcer today for what they do, with all the shilling for the network and the
dispersing of information. I mean, the guy's an encyclopedia.
Yeah, and he's a traffic cop.
Yep.
He's got to have so many thoughts put together. He's got to come up with all these segues that are viable, and then somewhere along the way, you get back to calling the wrestling match, and they don't really, Vince doesn't want the match really called. He wants a story told. Okay, I get that.
Oh, let me stop in right there. Why do you think Vince doesn't want the wrestling called anymore, like it was in the old days? I mean, okay, you're not going to be JR and Jerry Lawler, but why not talk about the match a little bit more than they do now?
Well, I think we touched on maybe part of that answer earlier about how come managers were pretty well erased. I think it's just a matter of reinventing the wheel. I don't think he likes play-by-play. I think he thinks people want to hear a story called, and I am a firm believer that if you do play-by-play correctly, that there is a story being told.
Well, I mean, that's the most important story being told, in my opinion, is one in the ring, and you've got to talk about that story.
I agree.
Or, because sometimes, it's a little bit of a disconnect with me, and I'm starting to understand the product a little bit more these days. But sometimes, man, what I'm seeing is different than what I'm hearing. I like for them to mesh together.
It's a unique thing, your brain, your eyes, and things you see, or your senses. But when you are seeing something on television and you're hearing something not totally unrelated, but not directly related to what you're seeing,
Right.
somewhere along that process there will be a disconnect. And some of that, either the sight or the sound, will be discounted. And so that's kind of where you are. I think that a good story being told can be done, talking about holes, body parts, pain, all the things that you go through, the passion, emotion, all that stuff. I think they pick the wrong spot, sometimes WWE does, to get in their $9.99 network thing. I'm a network. I bought the network on the first day. I'm going to renew it. No big deal. I like listening to it because a lot of those OWCW pay-per-views I never saw again. I did them live and never saw them again. I never saw Clash of Champions 1 after we did it that night.
Yeah.
Because I always thought my work was a drizzle of crap, and I just didn't want to hear myself.
Don't be so hard on yourself, kid. It was pretty damn good. I actually got the WWE Network myself, and I've been watching the stuff. I watched, I think it was Clash, or was it Slamboree? It was 1988. Sting was on fire. I'd only been in the business, give or take, about 3 years, and he was lighting it up. But I've been watching a lot of that old stuff, too, and enjoying not only watching the action in the ring, but listening to the commentary. But enough about that. I sent out on my Twitter account, you guys sent in questions for the one and only Jumpin' Jim Ross out of Norman, Oklahoma. Jim, I'm going to fire some questions at you. I hope you got some answers. This first one's near and dear to your heart and mine, and it combines old school and new school. Okay, Jim, in a shoot, Danny Hodge or Kurt Angle? That's from Pedigree 123. Danny Hodge or Kurt Angle in a shoot?
I'm going to go with Hodge, first of all, because, A, I'm biased. I'll admit that. But if you ask any of the old-timers, from Dan Gable, all these experts, all the guys that have been around, ask Jerry Briscoe, guys that who are schooled in the amateur stuff, there are very few human beings that got into pro wrestling that would give Hodge a run for his money because he was just so dominant as an amateur. And the other thing is, if you're talking about a street fight or a UFC fight, he was also the National Golden Gloves boxing champion. So you got a 3-time All-American that never lost in college. But then he went to boxing with no training and beats the best heavyweights in America with his fists. So, and all due respect to Kurt, which I have great respect for Kurt, after signing him and seeing his career evolve, I'd have to go with Hodge. The only guy in an amateur match that I've ever seen that would give Hodge a run for his money, and it's simply because of the weight differential. Hodge wrestled at 177, probably weighed about 200, 210. Wrestles a pro about 220 would be Lesnar. Because Lesnar's walking around at 285, 290. So that would be, but if you talk to Kurt, I had Kurt on my podcast. Kurt said he would beat Lesnar. That would have been a matter of a few more seconds if they'd have let him go in South Dakota that afternoon when they were.
That was an interesting day. All the boys were gathered around the ring, and they were pretty much about 3/4 shoot. And so, to me, it looked about like a draw. But both guys are just incredible athletes. One more follow-up about Danny Hodge. As you said, Danny Hodge was a great, great amateur wrestler back in the day, many years ago. For the people that don't know who Danny Hodge was, he also possessed just legendary grip strength. And there was always a story, Jim, of Danny walking into a hardware store and just grabbing pliers and just squeezing them and breaking the pliers just by squeezing them in his hands. Is there any truth to that, or was that a BS deal?
No, I can tell you from personal experience, back in the day when we ran spot shows, those little benefit shows at the high school gym for the JCs or the Kiwanis or what have you, I went into a hardware store because they had put up a poster. Those are window posters of the matches coming to town, and we were there that afternoon. So you're supposed to walk the streets and go in the stores and meet people and tell them about tonight. That was part of the gig. So me and Hodge are traveling together. We went into a hardware store, some little town down in Arkansas, and this guy was a doubting Thomas, and he said, "Well, so you're Danny Hodge, are you?" Danny said, "Yeah," real soft spoken, and he said, "I thought you'd be bigger." Well, that started off the conversation really good. So Hodge says, "Well, I'm just a little guy. I really I really can't hurt anybody. I'm just a little guy, and I just do my best. And he said, well, aren't you the guy that they say can break pliers? And he said, yeah, that's what they say. So the guy goes underneath the counter and has a miscellaneous box of pliers where it's like pick any pair out for 50 cents or whatever. There's various kinds of pliers in a cardboard box, and he throws a pair of pliers on the counter, so Hodge takes the pliers and puts them in his hand, and within a matter of seconds, they're snapped. And that guy said, damn, said, I must have been a faulty pair. Something wrong with that. So he threw out another pair, and he broke that. He ends up, long story short, breaking about 10 pair of pliers, and the guy just pulls the box off the counter like it's gold. And and then he says, well, I guess I owe you an apology. Yeah, I wouldn't have believed if I had seen it with my own eyes. So now I know what's coming next. So Hodge, he's going to shake hands with Hodge.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so Hodge remembered the little guy line. So Hodge was about 220. He wasn't at least 6'1". So Hodge took the guy's hand and shook his hand. Then he took his other hand, his left hand, and put it, like you'll see a politician do sometimes, they'll put it on the guy's wrist.
Yep.
So Hodge now has got him by the wrist, and he's got him by the hand. And you never seen a guy change his complexion going from almost just regular color to white-faced and didn't want to scream, didn't want to mess his pants. But Hodge finally gave, it was like let go of him, and the guy was having a hard time speaking. It was the damnedest thing you ever saw in your life. And I refereed a lot of his matches, and so he'd be selling on the canvas selling. He'd reach over and grab you by the ankle while he was selling, and it would feel like electricity running up your leg. It hurt so bad. And I was driving him. I said, "You son of a bitch! I don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again." And he'd laugh, and send that little guy thing. I'm just a little guy, Tiger. I couldn't hurt you.
And Danny Hodge.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Car waxes have really come a long way. Last year, Meguiar's introduced their hybrid ceramic spray wax. With its bright blue bottle, its advanced SiO2 hybrid technology delivers ceramic wax protection and durability beyond traditional wax. Incredibly easy to use. Simply wash your car. Spray on Meguiar's hybrid ceramic spray wax, then just rinse off. No rubbing, no curing, buffing, or mess. It provides extreme water-beating action. The product has been flying off the shelves, and this year, knowing some prefer a more traditional style of application, Meguiar's has launched their liquid version, Meguiar's Hybrid Ceramic Liquid Wax. Long-lasting ceramic protection and an easy-to-use wax. Seals the paint for long-lasting protection against the elements, and also delivers extreme water-beating action. Easy to use, applying like a traditional liquid wax with no wax residue. Meguiar's also launched a hybrid ceramic spray detailer for in-between boosted maintenance. Removes contaminants like dust, fingerprints, or those pesky bird droppings. Boosts gloss and enhances protection. And it also contains the SiO2 hybrid ceramic protection. Achieve that just wash look by gently removing fresh contaminants between regular washes before they have the chance to bond. Now Meguiar's has a hybrid ceramic solution for everyone, for incredible water beating and protection and durability beyond traditional wax. It's ceramic made easy. Meguiar's. All right, Jim, we've got another question here coming from Dale Blank. Hey, now this guy's got a pet peeve of his. He says, what do you think when a champion, usually the heel, enters the ring first and then the babyface good guy comes out last? I know they do this because the crowd will pop more for the face, but I think it exposes the product as being scripted and cheapens the title champion. In boxing or UFC, the champion always comes out last. Why would a champion have to wait for his challenger to come to the ring? What is your thoughts, Jim? This is from Dale Blank.
Well, Dale, I agree with Dale. I believe the champion should come out second. I don't care what the dramatic effect. That's somebody overthinking presentation. Somebody's overproducing a show, in my view. Your champion should come out second, and there should be an anticipation built for that champion to come out, whether it be pro or con. And if you're not smart enough to figure that out, and then it's all done because of the showbiz, that's somebody's theory on a showbiz presentation.
Right.
I say it's somebody's theory on overthinking a very simple process. The champion should always be introduced last.
All right, I would have to agree with Jumpin' Jim Ross. White meat babyface out of Norman. Let's move on. We got Leroy over in New Zealand. Jim, I got a lot of people that listen to the show over in England and UK, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia. I know you do too. There's one for you. And this is I'm looking forward to hearing the answer to this one. There's this new phenomenon, actually it's not new, on the internet where people will take a clip of a game or a recent event or something like that and dub JR's voice doing commentary over it. Has JR ever seen these before, and what does he think of them? You know, Jim, all those clips, and all of a sudden, by God, that guy had a family, all that other stuff that you've seen on the internet. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, I have seen them because how can you miss them? They go,
they're viral.
They do, man. They're crazy. I get them tweeted to me or emailed to my website or whatever all the time. You know, when I first saw them, I laughed my ass off because it was funny. They're still entertaining, and my only wish is that I wish there was some way that I could monetize those sound bites, but they're just for entertainment's sake. But you're flattered. You know, you get flattered about it. People quoting my commentary, and I've had them do it right to my face, too close to my face sometimes, where they're impersonating me doing Foley getting tossed off the Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
And God Almighty, it's like, you know, you need to here's a mint, and I can hear you without you being right in my face, and I think I know those lines, most of them. I might not know them as well as you, but that happened 16 years ago.
Right.
And people are quoting it verbatim. So I don't know what. I guess the only way to look at that in a nice way is that I'm privileged that they do it, and
you got to get a chuckle out of it because they put some of the damnedest. Whether it's someone slipping on ice or just you've seen all the footage, and there's your classic stuff that were super important wrestling matches, and they damn near fit perfect for the situation. So it's laugh out loud funny. Let's move on down the road here. We got Steven from Odessa, Texas. He loves the show, and his question for Jim Ross is, how would he book Bray Wyatt after his feud with Chris Jericho is over? And seemingly at SummerSlam, I think it came to a conclusion, Jim. What do you do with Bray Wyatt now?
Well, I would think that the Bray Wyatt Chris Jericho program that was SummerSlam seemed to me to be the blow-off.
Right.
You know, they may try to milk another match or two while Jericho's still around before he goes on his next musical adventure with Fozzy. But I think that thing's sailed. That ship has sailed. I believe that Bray Wyatt is a character babyface. I don't believe, in the way that I've seen him presented, that Bray Wyatt is a heel. And I think he's a character babyface, and he's kind of got that same feel. Now, I'm not talking about Ben Better or even The Hunt yet, but he's got a little Undertaker feel. He's a little mysterious, and he talks about things that are really bizarre and have double meanings and things like that. So I would book Bray Wyatt as a babyface, but not changing very much at all, if any. I just change who his opponents are and give him personal reasons to have those matches with guys that you perceive to be heels.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you that. I mean, everybody's bitching. I got a bunch of tweets today about, WWE screwed up with Brock Lesnar because he's so strong now they don't have any opponents for him. Well, that's what the bookers, and there are such a thing anymore, and the endless number of creative team members are supposed to do. It's fiction. You figure out who the next hero is going to be, and there's no villain that is unbeatable. If you get a villain that is unbeatable, then you just have renamed him a babyface.
Right.
That's what he is. So I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, Lesnar is going to be has got to tweak his game a little dab to be really a full-fledged heel.
Right.
He don't retreat much. he don't cheat much and deny it.
That being said, I think they just booked the Night of Champions rematch, Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. This might be where there is a retreat. This might be where he's got to cheat because, I said in some of the interviews I've done with Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller, at the SummerSlam match, John never went to that dark place that he mentioned he was going to have to go to beat Brock Lesnar. He never got a chance to. Bam, F5 at about the 30-second mark. It was all downhill from there. He fired up one time and then got beat in the middle. So I think if he reaches the zone he talked about a few weeks ago, that's when you might start to see some retreat and some cheating from, the big badass Brock Lesnar.
I think doing some darker vignettes for Cena, training, and doing things that he might not normally do in training, and not training where he's surrounded by chrome and mirrors and a regular gym. I'm talking about an old nasty-ass boxing gym or Fight Club gym. Because if I'm John Cena, I'm going to try to exploit diverticulitis, and that's the weakness of your torso and your abdomen. So I'm going to figure out a way to bust that big Lesnar's ass up if I can. So I would figure out a little different training method there. And to be honest with you, Steve, I think that something as subtle as Cena taking off his wristbands, or coming out in a pair of regular tights, shows you that he means business. I just can't get serious about a guy changing his attitude and wearing neon colors and tennis shoes.
And maybe maybe it's a black shirt, maybe it's Oakland Raiders mode, but just change something. But and it's almost like, it's almost like when the guy turned around and locked the door in the Coward of the County song. What was that? Like old Kenny Rogers song. He's finally, taking those wristbands off. It's time to settle the score, and these things are going to get in the way. These are going to cushion the blows I'm about to give you, so I'm pulling them off. But just something symbolic of him leaving all of that behind and going to a place that he's going to need to beat the one and only Brock Lesnar. Hey, here's one from you, from someone down the road from you in Tulsa, Oklahoma, named Sean. It says, what was Steve's, meaning me, single greatest strength coming into WWE? What, more than anything else, sold you on him? So what do you think I had coming into WWE?
I got reminded because I didn't see it back, and I got to go find it. Somebody said on one show, in those WCW shows, you were working with somebody, and I said if WCW had a draft and I had a pick, there would be my number one draft pick in Stunning Steve Austin. So I guess I saw something back then that made me see Bunny Cash. I always thought, your motor, you had you're a V8 and not the beverage, but the engine.
Yep.
You had a motor, and with that came passion and just the unrelenting will to be great. And you weren't going to accept anything else from the booking or the company, and more importantly yourself, other than being a great star in the wrestling business. And much like I am in my own commentary, you were your own worst critic, because I never have done a perfect match.
Right.
I've never done a match that I said, God dang, I can't make it any better than that, boys. There's mine for you here. Take this one. I ain't done that one yet. I keep saying that one of these days, right place, right time, right sport, I'm going to get closer to that perfect call, because I damn sure don't think it's over. But I think that was your deal. I think your motor was always running, and I just thought that you had too much natural athletic ability, product knowledge, but the motor was what separated you from everybody else.
And that being said, when I came into WWF as the ringmaster, I knew I had to lay all my stuff in, and I was doing that down in WCW, and looking around the landscape of what was going on then. at the time, and then seeing the guys that they were pushing, I knew that I had to have a very physical style, and it was. And so I didn't want anybody to be able to see through the things that I did. So, and that was a big part of my mindset. You know, the ringmaster was way off course, but it was a foot in the door, and everything transpired from then. But let's move on down the road here.
The thing about the ringmaster, Steve, is you got a jersey.
Yeah.
You got on the team. You might have wanted to be the starting middle linebacker, but they had you on special teams. But the bottom line was you got a jersey, and you made everybody that was in a position to make a decision pay attention to that jersey, where eventually you got to go to the promised land and reside there for a good long while. But that's what a lot of guys don't, you fans don't get. If you get a chance to get on the WWE roster, it's not just up to the creative and Jim Johnson's music. There's the guy that's got more to do with how good he's going to get is the one he sees in the mirror.
Right.
And I don't agree with all that BS about he didn't get his push. Hey, there's so few good big stars right now that if you work your ass off and you can make yourself be different and unique and lay your stuff in and be a pro, they can't help but use you. And they just can't. There is no depth. So now it's the greatest time in the world to break through and become a big time star. It's also the most challenging time ever to be in the wrestling business.
Well,
there's only one place you can go make the big money.
I agree 100%. There's only one place to be, and that's where they got all the cards in the deck on that one. Hey, talking to my good friend Jim Ross at JR's Barbecue on Twitter. I'm coming right back after word from the people who keep us on the air for free. Coming right back with Jim Ross.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
There's no shortage of action going on with our exclusive partners, BetOnline.ag. Sports are slowly making their way back with the UFC, boxing, NASCAR, and soccer leading the way. And BetOnline has all the best odds and lines for the upcoming games and matches. Need more? BetOnline has simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC happening every day live for you to check out. Looking for something else other than sports? BetOnline also has hundreds of live casino games, poker tournaments, and all the best props in the business. Visit betonline.ag or use your mobile device and join now to receive your new welcome bonus and start playing today. BetOnline, your online wagering experts.
All right, here we are with the White Meat Babyface from Norman, Oklahoma. My good friend Jim Ross, who has a podcast, drops every Tuesday night. It is the Ross Report, award-winning podcast. All right, it hadn't really won an award yet, but it will one of these days, and it's a badass podcast. Check it out. You can download it for free at PodcastOne.com and iTunes. Now, Jim, this one, a little out there. Long story short on this one, JR, what do you think about the idea of Brock going into WrestleMania as champ, beating Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman cutting a promo on how Brock can't be beat, and then the bells hit. Undertaker comes out, and we have a title match. Undertaker retires as champ, and the next night on Raw, we start a title tournament that Reigns eventually comes out on top to start his run as champ. That's from Jerry. Make a little sense.
Jerry, that's a good idea because I booked that on my podcast about 2 months ago. That was one of the scenarios that I booked where Undertaker wins the title. It's retirement versus the title. But little do we know that he wins the match, wins the title, and the next night on Raw, he lays it in the middle of the ring and says, I got what I came for. I've done it all. I'm out, whatever. And he does his promo short, sweet, and leaves. I'm done.
So you've already booked this?
About 2 or 3 months ago, so that's a scenario.
I'll be damned.
I booked a bunch of scenarios where actually at the time, I had this, it was John Cena versus The Undertaker for the WWE title versus Undertaker's retirement. So I thought that most people would think that that is a perfect time for Cena to turn heel and heel a victory over The Undertaker so that Cena retains the title, turns that little edgy heelish thing, and Undertaker has to retire because he said he was. And Cena would be red hot as a heel. I don't think the WWE is going to turn Cena heel, nor do they need to. After thinking about it, you're just booking things.
Right.
So then I came up with a double retirement match for WrestleMania 31 with Sting and Undertaker, where no matter win, lose, or draw, they're both going to be retiring. You're going to see their last match ever at WrestleMania 31. I think it's got a lot of cachet. It would add to the ensemble cast and would do great business. But I don't dislike the idea that the guy. I mean, I thought of that scenario where retirement versus the title. So you're going to see one of two things. Undertaker's either going to be the champion, or you've seen his last match. And little did we know that he became the champion, and we saw his last match. Because the next night on Raw, he hangs it up.
Well, let me ask you a question. You talked to Sting recently, and I keep hearing about one more match with The Undertaker. That sounds great to me. I'd love to see it. But I'm thinking, and I haven't talked to Sting. I saw him briefly at the 2K15 video game thing. But, man, I'd love to see the guy have, 3 or 4 matches. Or, maybe string out a year on the road. I don't know what his desires are or his goals are. You're the man to talk to him. Wouldn't you like to see more than one match out of Sting? Where's his head?
Well, I think his head is doing one match. I think that's okay. And I'm not thinking that he can't be dissuaded or convinced that there's a better way. I think it would all depend on the storyline and building it to a crescendo. And the thing about the mystique of Sting, because at his stage of the game, the years he's got in, he's really only looking to do that one big match. He wants that WrestleMania experience, and I think he's earned it. He's been a good ambassador to the business. He's worked hard. He worked hard for Cowboy when he was Hellwig's partner as a Blade Runner. He worked hard for Crockett. He worked hard for WCW. He worked hard for TNA, the whole 9 yards. He's the kind of guy that you want to see have that feel-good moment. I don't think that he cares if he wins or loses. I think it's a matter of the journey and then going out there in that Levi Stadium next year and being a part of the process. And that's why I said I don't know where Undertaker is on his health situation, to be honest with you. So I don't know that Taker is going to be around. My ideal for Taker, I did on my podcast as fantasy booking, was that if Taker's going to retire, he should do it after he works AT&T Stadium in Dallas.
Right.
Because there's where you got a chance to put a show together with a big package deal and do 100,000 people plus, and then people could say, I worked on the biggest pro wrestling event in the history of United States or North America. So
gotcha.
It's just planning down the road, and heck, I don't know how Taker's feeling, and I haven't talked to him in a long time, and I'll tell you this, I'll talk to him more, texting anyway, coming up soon, because we both are college football fanatics like you and I are, and then, of course, he and I will start building our promos with each other for the OU Texas game and the Cotton Bowl that I've invited him to come to 1,000,000 times, but someday I'm going to get him there, and he'll have a great time on the sideline.
Well, maybe he'll show up. Here's one for you. Hey, Steve, love the podcast. I got a question for both you and JR concerning Roman Reigns. I've seen some people have said that the WWE is pushing him a bit too soon to be the new face of the company, with these rumors going around that he'll probably win next year's Royal Rumble and then go to WrestleMania 31 and defeat Brock Lesnar. I personally think he's got enough talent and potential to be the top dog in the business, but I'm thinking it may be a bit too soon. Perhaps it's just me. I'd love to know what the Rattlesnake and good old JR have to say about all that. That's from O'Brien over in California. What do you think about too much too soon?
My take on that, Steve, is that I think that the audience's composition is changing. It reminds me of Cena-esque, where half the crowd, cheer Cena and half the crowd is Cena sucks. It reminds me of the Survivor Series when it was the signs for Die Rocky Die. No reason. Just thought it was cool and being, a little bit edgy from the fans' point of view. I can see if WWE isn't careful and strategic and Reigns doesn't. He fails to add a few things, a few wrinkles to his game. The same thing could happen to Roman Reigns. It happened to The Rock. That happened to John Cena. Too much, too soon, and you got to find that fine balance to where you're not force feeding the guy down someone's throat with his Superman punch, so to speak.
Right.
I just think that the audience is going to. They're very, very. It's a fine line you walk in there. I like Reigns. I booked in my thing that after back in February, I said I think Brock Lesnar will be the WWE champion. He'll go to WrestleMania 31, and he'll beat Roman Reigns, where the title will change hands, and the passing of the torch will take place. And I said that's what I would book right now on paper. You got to have a direction. Now, if between here and January, let's say, Roman Reigns is not where you want him, you got to call an audible.
Right.
Somebody else has got to win the Royal Rumble. That's not hard to figure out because all those pencils that McMahon uses has the most powerful weapon in the world on them, called an eraser. So if Reigns ain't ready, you get somebody else in that spot. And then who knows, by the time Lesnar gets to WrestleMania 31, he may be the biggest babyface the company's seen in years.
Right.
You don't know that. We don't know
in which case he may retain.
Exactly, he might retain. And he might be in line to negotiate even a better deal than he's got now, because I think I heard at one point that his contract ended right after WrestleMania 31. So it's going to be an interesting spring of the year, considering going into WrestleMania 31 and how it has to be a massive card to continue to help build the network. And don't let anybody BS you. That network is the new heartbeat of that company.
Well, let me jump in right here with another question from Paul Brown, which feeds into what you were just saying. With Lesnar now champ and his part-time schedule, do you think it will hurt the WWE Championship, as we will now only see the champ every few weeks, or will it give the WWE a chance to push the IC and US titles and make them more relevant? Paul Brown with the question, what do you think about the scheduling here? Will it hurt the WWE Championship as we know it?
No, I don't think so. I think as long you got Heyman, as long as Heyman didn't get laryngitis, and as long as the camera crew can find their way to Minnesota,
yep,
and watch this big bastard cut down trees or gut a deer, whatever, you're good. It was the same theory back in the day with Andre the Giant coming through the territories a week a year or 2 weeks a year. And then you'd VTR it, you'd videotapes, you'd have all these pieces on Andre. And it was damn sure that way with Flair, when Flair was the NWA champion. Working in Mid-South, Watts was not a member of the NWA.
Right.
And the reason for that was because he had a deal worked out with the NWA that he would never be a member, because that way they couldn't get sued for only letting their champion work in NWA towns and then have the issue of an illegal monopoly, which what they were sued for back in the 50s, and they escaped that one by hook or crook, mostly crook, because they were an unfair monopoly back in the day. So the Watts being an independent and him using the champion, it helped them out. So plus Watts didn't have to pay any dues. So Flair comes in to work for Mid-South. We did little packages on Flair for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before he got there. So by the time he got there, the deal was, who's he going to face? That's what gave us the money, because that was all determined in the house shows or on TV. So it was. So of course, Lesnar being there part time is not going to hurt the championship. It may make people have more motivation to watch the pay-per-views, because that's when you're going to see him get in the ring and do his thing like nobody else does it in the business today. And one would think, common sense would tell you, that the Intercontinental and the U.S. titles would both be, the advantage would be that they would both be get some equity built in them. I ain't seen that yet. The first thing I saw about the Intercontinental title making me feel like, well, hellfire, this might come back to life, is when they put it on Ziggler. At SummerSlam. I like Ziggler. I like his work. He could be a heel. He could be a babyface. He reminds me of a lot of different guys, but sometimes he reminds me of Shawn Michaels, just in that amazing natural timing and his athleticism. he can take an ass whooping as good as anybody I've ever seen, I think. One of the best. One of the best. But to compare anybody to Shawn Michaels probably isn't fair. But Ziggler being the Intercontinental Champion gives me hope that WWE will make the Intercontinental title and the U.S. title mean something. If they're not going to mean anything, get rid of the damn things, because they're just a lousy prop if the champion don't have no gas.
What about the U.S. title and the IC title? Should they unify those? Are they two separate, distinct enough titles that they should remain, IC and U.S.? It's almost, I don't know.
I think that I haven't been, the WWE's creative direction regarding those two titles has not been impressive. And so keeping two of them that mean not much may not make any sense.
Right.
Combining them into one, and whoever wins the match, that's the title they're going to keep. So I would put the Intercontinental Champion over because it's a...
I would too. That IC belt really means a whole lot to me and to the guys that had it before. I thought, to me, a little bit more credibility within the framework and structure of what the WWE is. Versus, the U.S. title is more of an NWA thing or WCW when I was there.
And it's the same reason that they're never going to probably ever have a War Games. War Games wasn't created in WWE, and they got Elimination Chamber, and they got the Hell in a Cell. You think they're going to do a War Games, which is a whole lot of steel and a gimmick and all that stuff that they didn't create? And somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute. They own the library. They own the intellectual property. Well, you'll have to get back with me on that one because there's a lot more reasons that it ain't going to happen. It wasn't created there, and it ain't going to happen there. So,
well, here we go. Let's shift gears here, Jim. We got one here going back to the Brock Lesnar Undertaker at WrestleMania 30. Canada boy, yeah, I have a question. Why did they have Brock Lesnar beat the Undertaker's streak? Would have been more memorable to have Undertaker retire with his streak intact. To that, Jim Ross, you say what?
I agree. I would never. He would have never lost at WrestleMania if I was booking. And I know that I had Shawn Michaels on my podcast. I had a two-parter with him. He was sitting up at the gorilla position. He didn't know what was going to happen. And then upon further review, he told me that the decision was made that afternoon, about 3 or 4 hours before showtime. So it wasn't a long decision that are going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Apparently, it was made that day in a meeting with Vince and Taker, and the decision was made. And I think when the very handful that got the word thought it was, I don't think Lesnar was even comfortable with it. I don't think Heyman was comfortable with it. I've heard that through the grapevine, not directly from them, but I think a lot of people thought that the Taker streak should be left alone. I know that WWE was launching that network, and they need to get a water cooler buzz. They need to sell subscriptions to the network. I get that. Got no problem with that. And so what can we do that's going to create the most talk about WWE and get us in the front of the people's consciousness? Well, Undertaker losing. And that's exactly what they did. And I think they did it to help attract attention to the brand, which is going to attract attention to subscribing to that network. So, but I personally, I would have figured out something else for that WrestleMania to get them talking.
Yeah, I was a real fan of the streak as well. Yeah. I think I could see an argument for the reason Brock won that title moving forward into the future, and I think into the future was the biggest thing that maybe Vince was thinking. But that being said, I was a fan of the streak. With that being said, let's move on down the road to the next question here, and the question is from Dave over in Birmingham, UK. He thinks the current 3-hour version of Raw is way too long and drawn out for his liking. And what does Jim Ross think of the current format, and how would he improve it? You got 3 hours of live television, Jim Ross, which must be done. How can we improve this? We both love WWE. We both subscribe to the network. We're speaking constructive criticism here. How can we improve this product?
Well, if Dave wants to write me a nice sizable check, I'll rebook the whole territory for him and become his consultant. giving people free advice sometimes isn't the smartest thing in the world. But the 3 hours is challenging. There's no doubt that the 3 hours is challenging. And I don't know that you can sustain a 3-hour broadcast with 15 commercial breaks and 16 segments. I'm almost to the point of thinking that the first hour should be something else that relates to the show, and not that lame pregame show that they try to do, which is scripted, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. When you got all these talkers out there, let them speak their opinion on who's going to win a match. Don't be afraid of somebody, well, okay, if we're going to do this now, you two need to go for the heel, and you two need to go for the... What difference does it make? Get people thinking and make it interesting, but maybe the first hour should be something else. I think that the segments can be, you can do some reset segments. I probably wouldn't do too many multiple segment matches. I would have some long matches, so the whole story could be told without being interrupted by a 3-minute commercial break. But aside from that, I got tons of ideas, but they cost money.
Here's one for you, Jim. This is, forget who this is from. This is Adam over in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd like to know if Jim Ross has considered recording his own commentaries for matches and making them available on his website. He could record commentaries for classic matches that he wished he could have called, or even current WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling shows. Obviously, we're thinking about a trademark or whatever legal issue there. But yeah, that would be an interesting endeavor, that to hear your commentary on some of the greatest matches of all time that either were in a different territory from you, and you could fantasy commentate this thing.
Yeah, it would be good if it was legal.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I was thinking about, but I wanted your take on that.
When you don't own the intellectual property and you start putting your voice over it and trying to sell it, then you're breaking the law, and you got a lawsuit you can't win. So while albeit it's an interesting idea, the closest that I came to that, Lawler and I a good while ago, we did we revoiced a bunch of matches with Hogan in the early days of the WWF and Hogan's run, more specifically Hogan's run. He was actually a heel. One of the matches was him and Bob Backlund, with Hogan as a heel managed by Freddie Blassie. But we revoiced 4 or 5 Hogan matches, and that was fun as hell because they were matches that I didn't call.
Right.
And they were new, and, Hogan has been a babyface forever, seemingly, but he had that run there. He was a heel. Lawler and I had a blast doing that. But it was for a DVD that's out there, probably on the network sooner than later. But it's a fun idea, but it's not legal.
Let's wrap this thing up. We got a couple more questions, but I want a little bit of in-depth discussion on these. When you were a regular weekly commentator, how did you prepare what you were going to talk about for each show each week, such as the facts and stats you would mention? Do WWE commentators have writers or other staff to do research for them? Have you kept all your notes from over the years? This is from Paul over the UK, but I guess let's break this down. I know you're a preparation freak just because you're a close personal friend of mine, and you always like to get ready for everything you do. So how intensive was that prep and stats, facts, and, did you guys have writers and other staff to help you guys do research that you may need?
First of all, Lawler was not a preparation freak. I carried it too far, I'll say that.
Yeah.
I would wear his ass out with preparation, and I learned that Jerry did a better job working with me when he reacted, because he has great instincts and amazing natural timing.
Yeah. Especially
when he was a heel. Our best work probably with Jerry and myself was when Jerry was a heel. But the less he knew, the better, because he could watch the monitor and react more naturally and organically. If we needed something obscure before the days of iPads and things like that, we'd get a writer to go back in the writer's room and look up how many times so-and-so's been the Intercontinental Champion or whatever. But I kept a lot of notes. I had notes on everybody in the territory, everybody in the company. so I could pick out little things that I needed for a show. But
have you kept all those notes over the years?
I got 327 hours of one sheets of Mid-South Wrestling that Cowboy formatted, that was done when it was all done by just handwriting. He printed it, and then we make copies because there was no word processors and stuff, and he didn't want anybody else in the office to see what he was writing. So it was kept very quiet, and then we'd get our little copies and go over them, and that's just the way Bill ran the business. The boys didn't have it. Nobody wasn't going to get out anywhere. So I had notes there. I had those notes. I've got a ton of TV formats from the WWE days. I got pay sheets, pay-per-view pay sheets. It just got packed. When my office got packed up and moved,
right.
They packed everything. And probably if I had gone through my office, I'd have put a bunch of stuff in the shredder. But I got it all. So, and now that I'm writing this book, some of it's going to come in handy. But the best work that Lawler and I ever did was when we knew the least amount of what was allegedly going to happen.
And Paul,
we didn't know Bret Hart was going to get screwed in Montreal. We didn't know.
So you didn't. That was one of my questions. So you didn't have any knowledge of the Montreal screw job ahead of time.
Well, I knew we had issues.
Right.
But the issue with me and Lawler, the last we heard before we went out, was real simple. What are we going to do in the last match? And somebody, I can't remember who it was, said it's going to be a DQ. So I didn't even ask who was going to get DQ'd. And Lawler didn't care. So all we were going to do is go out there and, like you would a ball game.
Right.
We're going to watch the monitors and we're going to call a game. So the least we knew, the better job we did. But I would still do my prep on the guys,
Yeah, but let's go back to that screw job, man, because when Sean turned Brett over in that sharpshooter, he wasn't there very long. All of a sudden, Earl starts waving that hand around or start ringing the bell. It was over. I got to go back and rewatch that. I'll do it on WWE Network. There's a plug.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Though we're apart these days, we're sharing more, and Geico would just like to say thanks. Thanks for sharing your Savage Dance moves. Thanks for sharing your DIY haircut fails. Thanks for sharing your inner lip sync star. Now it's Geico's turn to share too with the Geico Give Back, a 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies for current and new customers. And because Geico's committed for the long haul, the 15% credit lasts your full policy term. Visit geico.com/giveback for info and eligibility.
Jim, what were your thoughts when you saw that call the match? Because you're the voice, you've got to call it. I mean, that had to shock you. Because you've seen enough matches to know that son of a gun sure did come out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, when the bell rings to signify the end of the match, and it's a one-fall match, there ain't no redos. It's over. And then the referee raising Sean's hand, and then the look on Brett's face like, I can't believe this has happened. I mean, it don't take you got to be a class valedictorian to figure all that out.
Yeah.
At that point, you get right back into show mode. We got a new champion.
Right.
And I don't know what's happened, but we got, Shawn Michaels is the new WWE champion, whatever. I know that we went off the air that night very, very abruptly.
Yeah.
Kevin Dunn was in the truck, and I think it was something along the lines of JR were off the air in 10, 9. So it was like we had like no time to, it was one of those deals where Shawn Michaels is leaving Survivor Series as a WWE champion or something like that. It was a one-sentence deal, and that's about all you got, and we got off there. Where I realized that my work was going to be cut out for me was I was in charge of the talent roster. I was in charge of talent relations. I got to deal with now a whole bunch of talents. They're going to have a variety of emotions in this whole process.
So how was the fallout in that aftermath? Did you have just people coming in out of the woodwork saying, oh, my God, I can't believe this happened. What are we going to do?
A lot of them looked at me like I was one of the co-conspirators.
Gotcha.
And they said, I remember telling some guys telling me, we always thought we could trust you.
Oh.
And I'm saying, I don't know what your hell you're talking about because I didn't know this was going down. And then they look at you like, well, you just told me another lie.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going down. And Lawler even asked me when we were getting back to the back, with people throwing stuff at us. Do you know anything about this? I said, not a damn thing. And I didn't. Everybody knew that was hanging around that Brett was going to leave, and that there was
Right.
contention issues.
Nobody knew that was going to happen.
There's only a small little handful knew that it was going to go down like it did, and I wasn't in that loop. And Vince apologized to me when that was all said and done. He said, "I put you in a really, really tough spot because you got to regain the confidence of the roster, and they're going to be half of them going to be pissed at me anyway." So, I was on the phone a lot that night, and those were guys calling my room at the hotel. And
right.
I think it was all-nighter. And then the next day, we had to have a team meeting, and we had 2 more. That's a killer, man. We had 2 more days of TV to do.
Yeah.
So, I remember Mick Foley went home for a day, and I think Vince, everybody wanted to quit or wanted to time off or wanted to go regroup. No harm, no foul.
Hey, let's wrap this up with this question here, Jim. How much did you know ahead of time about the Taker versus Mick Foley Hell in a Cell match? I mean, did you know about any of the big bumps? I mean, obviously that's what they're referring to. And one was when that cage broke. That cage wasn't supposed to break, and Mick damn near killed himself. So what did you know? How much did you know?
I knew Taker was going to go over, and that's it. They said Taker's going to go over because it was his kind of match. It was he's kind of was the innovator of the Hell in a Cell thing.
Right. That was his gimmick.
It's his gimmick, and he's going to go over. Okay. Well, we never knew Mick was going to go off the top. And I thought, quite frankly, when he went off the top, I didn't see how physically he could continue. I just didn't see, I couldn't process that he could continue. And lo and behold, he not only continues, he climbs back up the cell, which for a guy in his condition and his size and all that was a feat in itself, climbing up to the top of the cell. And then nobody envisioned the cell giving away and him taking that nasty, ugly bump to the canvas. And there's where I really figured, surely to God, somebody's going to stop the damn match, and Undertaker's going to win because Foley can't continue.
Right.
They could do a return, they could do whatever. Foley could say, "You didn't beat me, I didn't quit, blah, blah, blah." But he continued. And the other thing that shocked me, and I think it might have been one of the first matches I ever did, where he took out all those damn thumbtacks.
That was the same match.
Yep, and he just spread those thumbtacks out. And I'm saying, what? I mean, there were hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And so, of course, he takes this. You know where they're going to go in him, and he's got them stuck everywhere.
Yeah.
It was the damnedest thing you've ever seen. And maybe it was so abrupt and so really coarse that maybe that's why 16 years later people still remember some of the commentary and the match and so forth and so on, because really there hasn't been anything quite like it since then, which is I perceive to be a good thing. But, you notice Taker didn't take any of those bumps.
Yeah, you can't, I think I just talked to Mick. Yeah, Mick was over here at the house a couple of weeks ago, and he's still feeling some of those bumps. But I tell you what, he's one of the toughest guys I've ever met in my life. Probably one of the toughest guys in the history of the business. One time I was working with him, and I believe it was before that Hell in a Cell match, and we were working, and he introduced that idea of the thumbtacks to me. I declined. And he was still going to go in them, but I knew some of them were going to get in me as well. So I politely declined that particular high spot. But nonetheless, it was a hell of a match. I just didn't know. The question was how much in advance you knew of this. But anyway, hey, man.
Take her over.
Take her over. That's all you need.
Take her over. And I want to tell you, Steve, this week on my podcast, I've got Tony Schiavone as my guest. Tony and I have not done anything publicly since about 1992.
Right.
But we had one of the most entertaining, fun to shoot the breeze and catch up with somebody. So Tony Schiavone is my guy that drops Tuesday night.
So everybody check that out. It's on a raw support. By the time this drops, that will drop as well. You can also catch Jim Ross on Twitter at JR's Barbecue. You can catch his website, jrbarbecue.com. Check out his blog. I just retweeted that. You wrote a new blog today. But, Jim, it's always good talking to you. I know we're going to be talking a lot because football season's coming up. We talk a couple times a week anyway. I got to get a new telephone plan. We talk too much. But I appreciate you coming on. Good friends are always welcome on the Steve Austin Show.
Thank you for joining us for another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends. For more Steve Austin Show, go to PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Hey. This is NFL Hall of Famer Ray Lewis. I'm excited to announce the launch of my new podcast, Everyday Greatness, the Ray Lewis Podcast. I'll be talking with friends, family members, old teammates, athletes, celebrities, moguls, and guess what? I'll be talking to you. Listen, this is all in the search for everyday greatness. So I'm asking you to come along with me on this ride. Download new episodes of Everyday Greatness, the Ray Lewis Podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on PodcastOne.com. It's not what you have, it's what's inside of you that actually inspires greatness.